Before I dive into what happened between us, something I never saw coming, I want to ask, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments. I love knowing where my stories reach. And trust me, this one is different. It all started with a flight I almost didn't take. A flight that turned out to be far more than just a way to get from point A to B. It became a moment in time I'll never forget because it changed how I saw someone I thought I already knew. His name is Daniel. He's my friend Emily's son. I've known him since he was a teenager. Tall, polite, always with that quiet charm. But I hadn't seen him in years. Life got in the way, as it tends to do. Emily moved out of state and I got busy with work and everything else that fills your time when you're pushing 50 and trying to stay on top of things. When Emily mentioned that Daniel was heading to Denver the same weekend I was flying there for a conference, she suggested we coordinate flights. You'll have company, she said. He's a grown man now, and honestly, it'll be good for both of you to catch up. I didn't think much of it at the time. To me, Daniel was still the kid I remembered in baggy jeans and oversized hoodies, helping me carry in groceries with that boyish smile. The morning of the flight, I was running behind. Typical. My heels clicked across the tile of the terminal, a hot coffee in one hand and my bag bouncing on my shoulder. When I finally spotted him at the gate, I actually did a double take. He was leaning against a column, scrolling through his phone, dressed in a fitted charcoal jacket and dark jeans, his hair a little tousled, the beginnings of a beard tracing his jaw. He looked different, not like a boy anymore. "Olivia," he said with a grin when he saw me, slipping his phone into his pocket. "You haven't changed a bit." I laughed a little, breathless. "Oh, I've changed plenty. You, on the other hand, ow, you've grown up." He chuckled. "It's been what, 8 years? Something like that." I nodded and we fell into a rhythm just talking. It was easy, effortless. His voice had a calmness to it, deeper than I remembered, like he didn't need to rush through words the way younger men sometimes do. We boarded early, thanks to my frequent flyer status, and as luck would have it, the seats were side by side. The plane was one of those smaller ones, 2 seats on each side, no first class. I had the window and he took the aisle. As the plane lifted off, we joked about the pilot's voice, how they all sound like they're half asleep, and I found myself relaxing more than usual. I travel often, but flights always make me a bit tense. This time was different. I wasn't staring blankly at a magazine or pretending to sleep. We really talked. He told me about his job. He's in digital design now, freelancing mostly. He just finished a contract in LA and was flying to Denver for a bit of a break. I figured I'd hike, reset my head. You know how it is. I nodded. God, I do. A change of scenery works wonders. He turned toward me slightly, his knee brushing mine. Not on purpose, but not exactly by accident either. "And what about you? Still doing marketing?" "Yes. Though these days I'm doing more consulting, smaller clients, less pressure, but I'm still on the go. Always another pitch, another campaign." There was a beat of silence as the plane settled into cruising altitude. And then he looked at me, really looked. "You know," he said, his voice quiet, "I used to have the biggest crush on you." I blinked. "What?" He smiled. Not cocky but sincere. "Back when I was like 16. I used to find reasons to be around when you came over. You probably never noticed." "Oh, I noticed," I said before I could stop myself. "I just thought it was cute. Harmless." He raised an eyebrow. And now the air felt different after that. Not uncomfortable, just charged. My mind scrambled for the right thing to say, but nothing came. Instead, I looked out the window and laughed nervously. "Well, that's quite the thing to admit at 30,000 feet. Maybe that's why I said it," he replied, leaning back. "What can you do? Jump out." The conversation shifted then back to safer topics, but there was something new between us, an unspoken awareness. When the flight attendant brought drinks, his hand brushed mine as he passed me my ginger ale, and I felt it, that flicker. It wasn't until later, when the turbulence hit and the cabin lights dimmed, that I realized how much his presence was soothing me. I hate turbulence. Always have. But when the bump started and I tensed up, he noticed. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded a little too quickly. Just not a fan of this part. Without asking, he reached over and gently rested his hand on mine. "I've got you," he said simply. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. That's when something shifted inside me. Something I hadn't expected, not attraction exactly. It wasn't that simple. It was recognition of him, of the man he'd become, of how long it had been since someone noticed when I was scared and simply stayed. We sat like that for a while, quiet. And when the bump smoothed out and the seatbelt sign went off, I didn't let go. Not right away. Not until it was time to land and we had to. As the plane touched down in Denver, I felt like something inside me had already taken off. I just didn't know yet where it was headed, but I knew I wanted to find out. We stepped off the plane and into the buzz of the Denver airport, blending into the crowd of rolling luggage and half-awake travelers. But something about the way Daniel glanced back to make sure I was right behind him, or how he lightly touched my back to guide me around a cluster of people, made me feel like I wasn't just another face in the crowd. I wasn't invisible. "I can help with your bag," he offered, reaching for the handle before I even had a chance to protest. "You don't have to do that," I said. He smiled and looked at me with that same calm confidence he had on the plane. "I know. I want to." We rode the escalator down in silence, my mind swirling. What was I doing? He was Emily's son, my friend's boy. And yet, the way he looked at me didn't feel boyish at all anymore. There was a warmth to it, steady, intentional, as if he saw past the years in history and focused only on the moment between us now. Once we got our bags, we found a quiet spot near the curb while waiting for our rides. I had a car coming from the hotel. He had a rental. But in that moment, standing side by side in the cool Denver air, the last thing I wanted was to say goodbye. He rubbed his hands together and looked over at me. "You sure you're all set?" I nodded, but my voice wavered. "Yeah, just a few meetings tomorrow and then maybe a walk if I can escape the laptop long enough." "You ever been to Red Rocks?" I shook my head. "No. Heard it's beautiful though." "It is. I'm going tomorrow. Early morning hike before the crowds hit. You should come." Took me a second. I wasn't expecting that. "You want me to come with you?" He shrugged almost playfully. "Only if you want. No pressure." Something about the way he said it made it feel easy. No games, just an invitation. One adult to another. "I'll think about it," I said, smiling in spite of myself. His car pulled up first. He grabbed his suitcase and turned to me, hesitation flickering behind his eyes. "Well," he said, "it was really nice seeing you again, Olivia. You made that flight feel short." I surprised myself by stepping closer. "You too, Daniel. You made it feel safe." He looked at me for a moment like he wanted to say something else, but instead he nodded slowly, then got in the car. I watched the taillights disappear before turning toward my own ride, my heart beating faster than it should have been. What was I even doing? He was 26. I was 49. What would Emily say if she even suspected? I shook my head as if I could toss the thought out like static. Still, when I got to the hotel room, I didn't open my laptop. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, staring at the message he had sent just moments after we parted. "If you change your mind, I'll be at the trailhead at 6:45. I'll bring coffee." No winks, no emojis, just a message that somehow felt more intimate than anything else he could have said. And I sat there for longer than I cared to admit, reading it again and again, wondering what he was thinking, wondering what I was feeling. That night I tossed and turned. I kept trying to reason with myself. He's just being friendly. It's nothing. But I knew it wasn't just that. It was something about the way he watched me when I spoke. The way he noticed when I got anxious during the flight. The way he didn't rush to fill the silence. Men my age often try to prove something. Daniel didn't. He just showed up, calm, observant, present. At 6:10 the next morning I was still awake, still undecided. My suitcase sat in the corner half unpacked. The city was still asleep outside my window. And in the quiet of that hotel room, I picked up my phone, opened the message and typed 2 words. "On my way." I don't even remember getting dressed. I threw on leggings, a fitted hoodie, and pulled my hair into a loose braid. I didn't try too hard, but I didn't dress like I normally would for a hike either. By 6:40, I pulled into the small gravel lot just outside the park entrance. And there he was, leaning against the hood of a rental SUV, 2 paper coffee cups in hand, the faint morning light outlining his silhouette. He saw me, smiled, and held one out. "I figured you'd show," he said. "Yeah," I raised an eyebrow. "You don't strike me as someone who lets curiosity go unanswered." I took the cup, feeling the heat of it warm my fingers. "You think I'm curious?" I know you are, he said. You wouldn't be here otherwise. We walked. Not fast, not far. Just enough to feel the air change and see the red rock formations reveal themselves like something out of a dream. The sunrise stretched long, lazy rays across the horizon, turning the world gold and pink. We stopped at a ridge, the view opening wide before us, and without even thinking I said, I needed this. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside me, his presence quiet but grounding. Then finally so did I. And that's when it happened. That moment where time goes soft and everything around you fades. The kind of silence that speaks louder than words. I looked over at him and he looked back. Not with lust, not with confusion, but with understanding, with respect, with a sense that he saw all of me, my age, my doubts, my beauty, my history, and he still wanted to stand there beside me. And I let him because maybe, just maybe, I wanted to be seen like that again. We stayed at that overlook longer than I expected. The morning air had a bite to it, but neither of us seemed in a rush to leave. The breeze pulled at my hair, and I kept brushing it behind my ear, trying to keep my focus on the scenery, but my mind wasn't cooperating. Not when he was standing just a few feet away, not when every part of me was aware of him. His presence felt calm, but beneath it, I sensed something deeper. He was holding back and so was I. I finally broke the silence. It's strange, I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. I've spent years trying to find stillness, some quiet in all the noise of work and routine. And here I am finding it with you. He looked at me, his eyes thoughtful. You've always been strong, Olivia. Even when you were helping my mom back when things were hard for her, I remember watching how you carried yourself. Confident, graceful. I think I looked up to that more than I realized. I swallowed, unsure how to respond. Compliments for men my age often come wrapped in expectations or flattery. But his words felt clean, real, like he wasn't trying to win me over, just tell the truth. We started walking back slowly, our footsteps crunching against the gravel trail. At one point he reached out to steady me when I slipped a little on a slope. His hand caught my arm gently, his thumb brushing the inside of my elbow. It was a small moment, a reflex, but it lingered longer than it needed to. Neither of us moved away. Back in the car, he played soft music as we drove through the winding mountain roads. I stared out the window trying to keep my thoughts in check, but it was hard. I could feel something shifting inside me. This wasn't just a nice catch-up with a friend's son. This was becoming something layered, complicated, and if I was honest with myself, beautiful. He pulled into a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Breakfast? He asked casually. I hesitated. I had work waiting for me back at the hotel. Emails, schedules, deadlines. But all I said was, sure. We sat at a small corner table by the window, sipping coffee and sharing pancakes, talking about everything and nothing. It felt easy, like we'd slipped into a rhythm we didn't even know we had. At one point he reached across the table to wipe syrup from the edge of my lip with his thumb, and the gesture froze me for a moment. Sorry, he said, pulling his hand back suddenly unsure. That was probably... No, I interrupted gently. It's okay. And it was. Really was. When we got back to my hotel, he walked me to the elevator. The lobby was quiet with only the low hum of morning activity. I turned to him, fumbling for the right thing to say. Some graceful way to close this out without closing the door on what was becoming. Thank you, I said finally, for the hike, the coffee, everything. He nodded slowly, eyes locked with mine. Olivia. I felt the tension tighten between us. Not the kind that pushes people apart, but the kind that pulls them in. My breath caught as he reached up and gently tucked a piece of hair behind my ear, his fingers grazing my cheek. You feel it too, don't you? He asked, voice low. I didn't answer right away. My heart was pounding in my chest. My skin felt warm, electric. I too, I whispered. There it was out. No pretending anymore. His hand lingered just a second longer, then dropped to his side. Then let me take you to dinner tonight. Nothing complicated. Just time. You and me. I searched his face, trying to find some angle of this that made sense. Daniel, I need to think. This is unexpected. He nodded, his expression calm. I know, and I'll respect whatever you decide. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside. As they started to close, I looked at him one last time. I'll text you, I said. The doors shut with a soft chime. Up in my room, I dropped my bag and sat on the edge of the bed. staring out at the mountains in the distance. What was I doing? Was I really considering this? There were so many reasons to walk away. The age gap, Emily, my own fear of being judged, or worse, getting hurt. But none of those thoughts quieted the way I felt when he looked at me, or how my body still remembered the pressure of his hand on mine during the flight, or how seen I felt when he talked to me, like I wasn't just some older woman who'd lost her spark, but someone worth knowing deeply. I closed my eyes and let the silence settle around me. The answer wasn't loud. It didn't rush in like a wave. It arrived like a whisper. And with trembling fingers, I picked up my phone and typed out the message before I could overthink it. Dinner sounds nice. A few seconds later, the reply came in. I'll pick you up at 7. I must have changed outfits 5 times. Too formal, too plain, too suggestive. I hated how unsure I felt. It had been a long time since I dressed with butterflies in my stomach, unsure if I was trying too hard or not enough. In the end, I chose a navy blue wrap dress that felt like me. Comfortable, a little elegant, and flattering without trying to be anything it wasn't. I let my hair fall loose over my shoulders and applied just a hint of color to my lips. The knock came at exactly 7 o'clock. When I opened the door, Daniel stood there in a dark button-up and fitted jacket, no tie, his sleeves casually rolled up. He looked relaxed, polished. And yet, the way he glanced at me, it wasn't casual at all. You look beautiful, he said, his voice low and sincere. I smiled, suddenly shy. Thank you. You clean up well yourself. The restaurant he'd chosen was small, quiet, tucked between 2 galleries in an older part of town. Candle light flickered off the brick walls. A jazz trio played softly in the corner. It wasn't flashy, but it was thoughtful. And it felt like a world away from everything I'd been carrying lately. We talked over wine, our conversation flowing easily. I told him about my early career, about the first time I pitched a campaign that got picked up nationally. He told me about his design work, and how he'd learned to trust himself more after failing his first big contract. We didn't talk about Emily or the past or what this was. Not yet. Over dessert, though, I finally asked the question that had been haunting the back of my mind. Daniel, are you sure about this? About me? He set down his fork and looked at me calm and clear. Yes, I've thought about this more than you might believe. But why? I laughed nervously, gesturing vaguely to myself. You could be with someone closer to your age, someone who doesn't have history. He leaned forward, his tone soft but unwavering. Guys, you're not a phase, you're not a fantasy. You're a woman I've respected for years. And now that I'm older, now that I know who I am, I see you. Not just who you were to my mom. Not just someone older. You, Olivia. You're everything I didn't know I was waiting for. Tears surprised me. Not full ones, just the sting behind my eyes. The kind that comes when you realize you've been starving for something, and someone finally offers it without asking anything in return. We didn't rush the night. He didn't try to turn dinner into anything more. He simply walked me back to the hotel, holding my hand as we strolled in the cool evening air. Our steps slow, unhurried. Outside the hotel entrance, we paused. His thumb traced mine gently. I'm not expecting anything, he said. Not tonight, not ever. But I meant what I said. I'd like to see where this could go if you want that too. I looked up at him, my heart strangely calm. The fear had quieted. The what-ifs faded into something simpler. Hope. I want to take it slow, I said softly. He nodded. So do I. And I need honesty. No secrets. You'll have that, he promised. I stepped closer and rested a hand lightly on his chest. I could feel his heartbeat steady and strong. I wasn't looking for this, I whispered. Neither was I, he replied, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. But I'm not running from it either. He kissed me then, gentle, respectful, and impossibly warm. It wasn't rushed or hungry. It was the kind of kiss that says, I see you and I'm here. When we pulled apart, I didn't feel dizzy or confused. I felt steady. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. Okay. And then he was gone, his footsteps fading as he walked down the street, leaving me standing there with a smile I didn't expect to wear. A smile that said something inside me had shifted quietly, but permanently. Back in my room, I didn't overthink it. I didn't pull apart every detail or question my choices. I simply changed into my robe, poured a glass of water, and stared out at the Denver skyline. There are moments in life you don't see coming. People who enter your orbit when you least expect them. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes it's complicated, and sometimes it's exactly what your heart's been waiting for. That flight changed everything. Not because of turbulence, not because of chance, but because I saw Daniel not just as my friend's son, but as a man who reminded me I'm still worthy of being seen, of being chosen, of being loved. And for the first time in a long while, I believe that might actually happen again.